Shalom, Rastafari. This is your brother again, Yefdi, Johannes Welde Emmanuel. I just wanted to speak a little bit about the events that have been taking place since the advent of so many world issues have been going on, and a lot of world news has been popping up all over the place, and really, I guess it's, so to speak, putting a damper on a lot of people's moods and attitudes so far. As the past Shabbat or the Sabbath went by, we happened to see, what the Rebbe kind of coins, and I kind of agree with that term as well, that blood lunacy has really been going on. There's been a lot of crazy and outrageous things going on, and you'd have to be blind to really not see it. But speaking of, and let's just get right into it because I don't want to really beat around the bush with it. It's been let's speak mostly on the ISIS and the ISIL, the Islamic State thing that's been going on. It's been really, really, really out of order, so to speak, and not to even kind of make it a laughable situation because it's clearly not. But let's just really take a look at that for a second before we go on to any other subjects. Earlier I actually posted the screenshot of the PDF for the work from Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. If you haven't checked that out, it's up on the PDF section and the free shareware documents on Rastafari Groundation, and that's by Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor, The Valley of the Dry Bones. You really need to take a look at that one, brothers and sisters. The pages are not, chronologically put together, for the entire content, but if you can, kind of skim through it, you can kind of catch the gist of what the entire work is saying. The complete work is there, but, you have to kind of skim through most of the pages because it's not exactly, posted in chronological order, consistently throughout. But, if you actually follow the pages, you should be able to actually get it and pull from whatever your interpretation of it might be. But it's a very intense work, and I really have to commend, our elder for putting that work together. I also have to commend his wife, of course, Mary Windsor, who also works in the publication and provides that huge support for, our elder brother like that. And it's really a blessing to have something like that of this nature to reference, especially in this time. It's truly a work ahead of its time. And aside from just commending our elder for putting it together and really thanking him for such a well put together and a well organized scholarly work, we really have to commend and give credit where credit is due, because that work is outstanding. So if you haven't checked the Valley of the Dry Bones out, be sure to do so. If you can't go to LOJ Society and find it, it should be up on a few of the first posts on Rastafari Groundation in the PDF section. It should be on the right. You might want to skim down a little bit just to find it, or you can find it in the tabs page on the front page of RastafariGroundation.com. So be sure to check that out, because that's pretty much what I'm referencing here. In that work, I want to say it was around page 123, or it's really in between pages 120 to 129. That's really what you want to focus on. And it's really in that coming of World War III. A lot of people have made a lot of predictions and, a lot of assumptions on, what's to be the coming next war. And it seems just like everybody seems to notice that it's obviously going to be another war. It almost seems inevitable in some people's mind. Others might, discredit it and, kind of write it off in certain ways. But, a lot of people are really set in their minds and kind of set on how other people are thinking and how many others are, kind of making this situation as huge as it is. And people are really just kind of, calling it before it really happens, because it just seems to be more of a calculated situation that seems like it's just going to happen. So I really want to go into what Rudolph R. Windsor says in this, because he really mentions how the countries that seem to be involved in such a battle for, I don't want to say supremacy, but more so dominion. That's more the word I'm looking for. More dominion over, most of the known world as we know it today. And it really just seems to rehash a lot of old bad relationships. A lot of bad, blood. Just a lot of bad instances in where leaders of countries and communities of people seem to, still harbor a lot of ill intentions, towards others. And it seems to be that this is just the time that we're living in, just mostly the signs of the times. And so, just looking at a place like Russia, and a place like Russia on the news, you should see this every day if you actually kind of just pay attention a little bit. I know most of the Rastafari, of course, and the Hebrew-minded people, and the Hebrews just really don't, ascribe to much TV. We tend not to, just bombard our minds with so much of the, the ill intent, the misprogramming, and the misdirection of how the TV programming works. But, every now and again, you just have to kind of tune into what's going on just to take a pulse of where the world is, at in this time. So it's very significant how you can see a place like Russia, in the position that it's in. It's very interesting in how China is positioning itself in the place and mind state that it's in America, and of course the rest of the European bodies. Greece is another place that's all over the news all of the time, and Germany, England. It's so many places that have really, just been up in the news and coming up on discussions, and people just really kind of, keeping their ear to the street, in so many words. But it's, very significant, and some things that people really need to kind of take a toll on, because Rudolph R. Windsor, for one, makes a clear note about that in this work, The Valley of the Dry Bones. And just to speak on the more so the main topic of what I wanted to get into in this reasoning, before I really veer off into some other, reasonings and interpretations on what we have been having going on here, especially here in America. It's just taking a look at what happened in Libya with the Ethiopian Christians. It's just an extremely disheartening, an extremely sad situation that we obviously had to witness. Even if it was staged, even many of the conspiracy theorists and other skeptics, some even would like to project that maybe this was a staged event, and some of these happenings are not real, and this and that, and we could go on and on about that. But just the initial citing of such things, it you can't help but bring up the scriptural reference to Zephaniah 2:12, and it was such a wild and outrageous thing to happen, especially with it being broadcast over not only national news but worldwide news in such a time. And not to excuse many of the things that have been going on in and around Africa as well, especially in Ethiopia. So it's not a thing of excusing that, but just bringing a call to it, just really making people open their eyes to, the blatant facts of what's been going on. But it just seems to be such a whirlwind of things that are going on right now, and it's really just shaking up the world as we speak. Not to mention, let's even retract a little bit to, what went on in Saudi Arabia. Not too long ago. I'd have to say it was, about 3 to 6 or so months ago or something like that, towards the end of the 2014 year, or maybe the beginning of 2015 or so, maybe in a couple of months into 2015. There was also Malik Abdullah, King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia. He actually passed away. So there was some things going on in Saudi Arabia at that time. And, not to forget about the things that have been going on in Syria with the Christians there, the Christians in Egypt, of course, the Coptic Christians there. And the ongoing toils in Sudan, and what brought about the new nation of South Sudan. It's just a total whirlwind in this day and time. So if you're not really paying attention to this, you really should take another look at it, because it's so much that you're missing. And if you're actually trying to put these pieces together, then, one like myself, your brother Yefdi, would have to say you might want to take a look, in these areas, because there's really so much to be had, from a knowledgeable perspective, if you actually intentionally pay attention to what's going on in those geographical locations. So, like I said again, it's just a really, really challenging time for those who are really trying to keep their minds and hearts set on what should be focused on. And, of course, that is always, the scriptures, the law and the testimony, in which you should, because if you actually do that, in spirit and in truth, you'll be able to really, keep your mental in a state to where you can stay focused on what time you're living in and the signs of these times. It'll really keep you grounded in this time, because then you'll actually be armed with the knowledge about what things are happening around you, and you'll be able to adjust yourself to these happenings. So I just really wanted to speak, in a really laid back conversation with you, just to really keep your minds focused, my brothers and sisters, on, staying aware, definitely staying aware, and keeping your mind and heart set on not only your goals, but what goals Jah has for you, what our Father has planned for you, because these times were already set, before we were even thought of. So really keep that in mind. This is just another rehearsal for Jah, Some things are just meant to really just happen. Nobody really said it better than Burhan Selassie, the great legend of reggae, Bob Marley. Many more will have to suffer, and many more will have to die, but don't ask me why. Very prophetic in tone, very prophetic in lyrics was Bob Marley, even though many would beg to differ. But it's clear that, as His Majesty says, history will judge. So it's, one thing to, speculate about other things and many, outlandish things that may happen in this world, but it's another thing to actually kind of have insight, and really that foresight and that foresight of knowledge to really position yourself in such a way that'll be beneficial for not only you, but for, as many as those that you can open your eyes, as you can open their eyes, to, the facts and the things going on in this day and time. So I really encourage ones and ones to, for the most part, I really can't explain, more on this subject. It's just really something that you're going to have to really study and seek out yourself. So again, I mentioned that work again by Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor, The Valley of the Dry Bones. It really puts together so many pieces, that are missing, not only from history, but of course from, this world that we're actually living in now. It's really putting together a lot of the things that have been missing, from our upbringing in the public school systems, and even in many of the private school systems. A lot of the private school systems don't have these type of teachings either. So if you're thinking you went to private school and you just got a better education because you went to private school, you really need to think again, really, and be honest with not only yourself but but those around you. So again, just check out that work again, The Valley of the Dry Bones by Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. It'll really enlighten you to some things, and I have to be honest with you, it'll really make you drive yourself to study up on many more things that have been going on in the world, especially before this time, especially the Cold War, World War II, World War I, of course. I think it's vital that ones and ones revisit those, moments in history once again, and many of the things that went on before them, and also the things that went on after, because it'll really kind of give you a grounding in where you'll understand a little more about how these nations and the heads of these nations are operating, because it seems that nothing has changed really. Some things have changed, but a lot of things have stayed the same, if you can get that analogy. So it's really something that ones and ones really should pay attention to, not only to focus on their own day-to-day and the goings and the comings, but really to find a focus in where not only their own studies continue to push them forward, but they also have that foresight to really analyze the situations that outline themselves around them and their communities. So again, my brothers, we'll have some more videos coming. I definitely want to take another toll on, the Rastafari community, of course, our Line of Judah Society, Rastafari Groundation community. Again, of course, check us out on the DSR Discipleship Radio and Blog Talk Radio, as always, on every Sabbath, and of course for Testify Tuesdays. This is your brother, Yefdi, Johannes Welde Emmanuel. I'm going to continue to post, and share I&I's gatherings and I&I, studies and what I've picked up over the years. And I seek to reason more with the brethren. Of course, I have more and more of you, as well as the sister, coming on, and just sharing with I&I and I&I channel, so many of the youth especially can begin to get this and understand and overstand what is going on in this world, because I know it can be so much confusion out there. It's Babylon, so it's nothing but confusion. But we seek the knowledge and the truth of His Majesty, in and through His Christ, of course.